The ice-cold water shocked me awake, soaking through my pajamas and bedding. My father stood over me, empty bucket in hand, his face twisted with familiar disgust. "It's 2 p.m., Sophia. Another day wasted in bed. What's wrong with you?" I tried to explain that I'd been up until 6 a.m., fighting to fall asleep as usual, but my words slurred with exhaustion. At 23, I'd spent nearly a decade being labeled the family disappointment, the lazy one, the unmotivated one, the one who chose to sleep her life away. "I'm trying, Dad," I mumbled, struggling to keep my eyes open. "I just can't stay awake. Can't or won't." He threw open my curtains, the afternoon sun feeling like needles in my eyes. "Your sister manages to work 2 jobs. Your brother's in medical school. And you? You can't even keep a part-time job at a coffee shop." He wasn't wrong about that last part. I lost my 3rd job this year after falling asleep during my shift. Again. The manager had been surprisingly kind about it, but the outcome was the same. Another failure to add to my growing collection. "Get up. Get dressed. Your mother's having the family over for dinner, and he will not embarrass us by sleeping through it." Again. After he left, I dragged myself to the bathroom, my body feeling like it was moving through molasses. The mirror showed the familiar dark circles under my eyes, the pallid skin, the perpetually exhausted expression that had become my default look. My phone buzzed with messages from my siblings in the family group chat. "Emmy, Dad says you're still in bed. Seriously, Soph? Marcus, maybe if you didn't stay up all night on your phone. Mom, dinner's at 6. Please try to be presentable this time." They didn't understand. None of them did. I wasn't staying up by choice. Something was wrong with me, really wrong. But years of being called lazy had made even me doubt myself. I managed to make it downstairs by 5:30, feeling like a zombie. My mother was preparing dinner, shooting me disapproving looks as I slumped at the kitchen counter. "Would it kill you to help?" she snapped. "Or is standing too much effort?" Before I could respond, my sister Amy burst in with her husband and kids. "Look who's finally vertical," she announced. "Did Dad have to use the water bucket again?" My 5-year-old niece, Emma, ran up to me. "Auntie Sophia, why are you always sleeping? Are you Sleeping Beauty?" "I wish, sweetie," I mumbled. At least she got to wake up properly. Dinner was the usual ordeal, everyone discussing their busy, productive lives while I fought to keep my face out of my plate. The exhaustion was overwhelming, making it hard to even lift my fork. "Sophia, are you even listening?" My mother's sharp voice cut through the fog. "Your cousin James is offering you a job at his office." I tried to focus on James's face across the table, but my vision was blurring. "I don't think." "She doesn't think," Marcus interrupted. "That's the problem. Too busy sleeping to think about her future." The room started spinning. I felt my head nodding forward and jerked it back up, only to see everyone staring at me. "This is ridiculous," Dad exploded. "You're falling asleep at the dinner table like a narcoleptic." That word, narcoleptic, triggered something in my Aunt Susan's expression. She'd been quietly observing me all evening, and unlike the others, her face showed concern rather than judgment. "How long has this been going on, Sophia?" she asked, cutting through the family's grumbling. "Years," I admitted. "Since high school. I can't stay awake. No matter how much I sleep, I'm always exhausted. And at night, I lay there for hours, unable to fall asleep properly." "That's not normal," Aunt Susan said firmly. She turned to my parents. "Has she ever had a sleep study?" "A what?" Mom scoffed. "She doesn't need a study. She needs discipline." "Actually," Aunt Susan continued, "these symptoms sound like a serious sleep disorder. I work with a neurologist who specializes in sleep medicine. I'm making her an appointment." "This is ridiculous," Dad started, but Aunt Susan held up her hand. "No, what's ridiculous is watching my niece suffer for years while everyone calls her lazy. This isn't normal teenage sleep patterns. This isn't depression. This is something medical, and it needs to be investigated." For the first time in years, someone was taking me seriously. I burst into tears, the exhaustion and relief overwhelming me. "I'll pay for it myself," Aunt Susan announced when my parents started to protest. "Sophia, we're getting you help." As my family sat in stunned silence, Aunt Susan helped me up from the table. "I'm taking her home with me tonight. She needs rest, not judgment, and tomorrow we're seeing that specialist." No one stopped us as we left. Maybe it was the authority in Aunt Susan's voice, or maybe they were finally realizing that something was genuinely wrong. Either way, as we drove away from my parents' house, I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in years. "You're not lazy, Sophia," Aunt Susan said quietly as I fought to stay awake in her car. "You're sick, and we're going to prove it to everyone." I wanted to thank her, but the exhaustion won. As I drifted off, I heard her make a phone call. "Dr. Harrison?" "Yes, it's Susan. I need an emergency sleep study for my niece. The symptoms are severe." "Yes. Thank you." For the first time in years, I fell asleep knowing that someone finally believed me. The sleep clinic was nothing like I imagined. Instead of the sterile hospital environment I expected, it looked more like a hotel. Dr. Harrison's office was warm and inviting, with diagrams of sleep cycles on the walls and a genuine interest in her eyes as I described my symptoms. "How do you feel right now?" she asked, noticing my struggle to keep my eyes open. "Like I'm underwater," I admitted. "Everything's heavy, foggy. I could sleep right here in this chair." She nodded, taking detailed notes. "And at night?" "I lay awake for hours, but not really awake. It's like being trapped between sleeping and waking. Then when I finally sleep, I have vivid dreams, sometimes nightmares. Sometimes I can't move when I wake up." Dr. Harrison's expression changed at this last detail. She leaned forward, suddenly more intense. "Sleep paralysis. Do you ever experience sudden muscle weakness during strong emotions?" "Yes," I exclaimed. "I collapsed at my brother's graduation when I was laughing. Everyone thought I was being dramatic." The doctor scheduled an immediate overnight sleep study. Aunt Susan helped me check in that evening, while my phone buzzed with skeptical messages from my family. "Mom, this is a waste of money." "Marcus, can't believe you're actually paying doctors to watch you sleep." "Amy, drama queen strikes again." I turned off my phone as the technicians attached electrodes to my head and body. "These will monitor your brain waves, muscle movements, and breathing," they explained. "Just sleep naturally." Natural sleep didn't come easily with all the monitoring equipment, but eventually, exhaustion won out. What happened next would change everything. The next morning, Dr. Harrison called my parents and siblings in for a consultation. They came clearly expecting to hear that nothing was wrong with me. Aunt Susan sat beside me, holding my hand as the doctor pulled up my test results. "What we witnessed last night," Dr. Harrison began, "was one of the most severe cases of narcolepsy with cataplexy I've seen in years." She played a video from my sleep study. It showed me entering REM sleep within minutes of dozing off, something that should take hours. My brain waves were completely abnormal, shifting between sleep states chaotically. "Normal sleep follows a predictable pattern," she explained, showing a diagram. "Sophia's brain essentially shortcuts the process, plunging directly into dream sleep while she's still conscious. This causes sleep paralysis, hallucinations, and extreme daytime sleepiness." My father's face had lost its usual judgmental expression. "But she's been like this for years. How did no one notice?" "Narcolepsy is often misdiagnosed or dismissed, especially in young people," Dr. Harrison said firmly. "The symptoms can look like laziness or depression to untrained eyes. But this is a serious neurological condition." She switched to another screen showing my brain activity. "Sophia's brain isn't producing enough hypocretin, a chemical that regulates sleep-wake cycles. Her body literally can't maintain normal consciousness." My mother had started crying silently. Marcus looked pale, probably remembering all the times he'd mocked my excuses. "The good news," Dr. Harrison continued, "is that this is treatable. We'll start Sophia on a medication regimen immediately. With proper treatment, many narcolepsy patients lead normal lives. But she'll need support," she added, looking pointedly at my family. "No more ice water wake-ups. No more accusations of laziness. Her brain is physically incapable of maintaining normal sleep patterns without medical intervention." Amy raised her hand like we were in school. "What about all those times she fell asleep at work or in class?" "Those were sleep attacks, sudden, uncontrollable episodes of sleep. Imagine being awake for 72 hours straight. That's how Sophia's brain feels all the time without treatment." The room fell silent as my family processed this information. Years of accusations, punishments, and judgment were being rewritten in light of medical evidence. "There's something else you need to know," Dr. Harrison said seriously. The stress of being disbelieved and punished for her symptoms has likely made Sophia's condition worse. Emotional stress can trigger narcoleptic episodes. My father put his head in his hands. All those times he yelled at me, dumped water on me, called me worthless. He'd actually been making my condition worse. Treatment starts today, Dr. Harrison announced. But medical intervention is only part of the solution. Sophia needs a supportive environment to manage this condition. Aunt Susan spoke up. She'll stay with me until we get the medication sorted out. My house is quiet, and I can help monitor her symptoms. No one objected. For once, my family seemed to understand that they weren't equipped to handle this. I've also written notes for your previous employers, Dr. Harrison added. With proper medication and workplace accommodations, you should be able to maintain employment. What happened before wasn't your fault. As my family filed out of the office, each lost in their own thoughts, I felt a weight lifting. Not the physical weight of exhaustion. That would take time and medication to address. But the emotional weight of being disbelieved for so long. Ready to start treatment? Dr. Harrison asked kindly. I nodded, finally allowing myself to feel hopeful. For the first time in years, my constant exhaustion wasn't a character flaw or a moral failing. It was a medical condition, and more importantly, it was one we could treat. Aunt Susan squeezed my hand. Let's get you home and rested. Tomorrow we start fresh. 3 months into treatment, I sat in Dr. Harrison's office for my follow-up, clutching my sleep diary with pride. The medication had transformed my life in ways I never thought possible. Your sleep patterns are stabilizing nicely, she said, reviewing my charts. How are you feeling? Like I'm finally awake, I replied, still amazed by the difference. I can tell when I'm actually tired now, not just constantly exhausted, and the sleep paralysis episodes have decreased significantly. The medication wasn't a miracle cure. I still had narcolepsy and always would, but it made my condition manageable. I learned to schedule naps, recognize my triggers, and advocate for my needs. My family was still adjusting to the new reality. Mom had thrown herself into researching narcolepsy, joining online support groups for parents of people with sleep disorders. Sometimes her enthusiasm was overwhelming, but it was better than the previous denial. Your sister called me, I told Dr. Harrison. She wanted to know if her daughter should be tested, since narcolepsy can run in families. Emmy had become surprisingly protective since my diagnosis. The same sister who once mocked my laziness now fiercely defended me to relatives who didn't understand my condition. Dad struggled the most with guilt. During my last visit home, he'd broken down completely. I failed you, he'd said, his voice rough with emotion. All those times I punished you, hurt you. I was torturing my sick child. The road to recovery wasn't just medical, it was emotional too. My therapist helped me process years of internalized shame and self-doubt. I had to learn that sleeping wasn't a moral failure, that needing rest didn't make me weak. Work was a new adventure. With proper documentation from Dr. Harrison, I found a job that accommodated my condition. My supervisor had set up a small rest area in the office where I could take my scheduled naps. My colleagues were understanding once they learned about narcolepsy. Remember when you thought you'd never be able to work? Aunt Susan asked during our weekly lunch. Now look at you, Employee of the Month. She wasn't exaggerating. The award hung on my wall at home, next to my sleep study results. Both were symbols of victory, proof that I wasn't lazy, just sick and now healing. Marcus had come to visit last week, bringing medical journals about narcolepsy from his studies. We covered sleep disorders in class, he'd said. I kept thinking about you during the lectures. How did we miss the science for so long? The answer was simple. We'd all been trained to see sleep as a choice, as something that could be controlled through willpower alone. My condition had challenged that belief, forcing everyone to reconsider their assumptions. Even my young niece Emma had adapted. Auntie Sophia needs her special rest time, she'd tell people seriously. Her brain works different, but she's still the best aunt. 6 months after diagnosis, I stood in front of a support group for newly diagnosed narcolepsy patients, sharing my story. The fear and hope in their eyes mirrored what I felt in Dr. Harrison's office that first day. Treatment isn't perfect, I told them honestly. I still have bad days. Sometimes I still struggle with sleep attacks or sleep paralysis. But now I have tools to manage them, and more importantly, I understand that it's not my fault. My parents sat in the back of the room during my talk. Mom was taking notes, probably for her support group. Dad just listened, his eyes never leaving my face as I described the years before diagnosis. Afterwards, a young girl approached me, her mother hovering nearby. "Everyone thinks I'm lazy too," she whispered. "Did the medicine really help?" I knelt down to her level. "The medicine helps a lot, but you know what helps even more? Understanding that being sick doesn't make you lazy. You're fighting a battle they can't see." Today, 1 year post-diagnosis, I live independently in my own apartment. My medication schedule is posted on the fridge, my nap times are clearly marked in my calendar. And my service dog, Luna, is trained to recognize sleep attacks before they happen. My family has transformed from skeptics into advocates. When a distant uncle made a comment about me sleeping my life away, my father actually threw him out of the house. "My daughter has a neurological condition," he'd said firmly. "Educate yourself or keep your opinions to yourself." Dr. Harrison says I'm one of her success stories, not just because of how well I've responded to treatment, but because of how I've helped educate others about narcolepsy. "You've turned your struggle into strength," she told me during my last appointment. "That's more powerful than any medication." Looking back at my sleep diary from those first dark days, I barely recognize that desperate, ashamed person. The girl who believed she was worthless because she couldn't stay awake, who accepted punishment for something beyond her control. Now I understand that narcolepsy is part of who I am, but it doesn't define me. I'm not lazy. I never was. I'm just different, and finally, that difference is understood and accepted. As I curl up for one of my scheduled naps, Luna settling beside me, I'm grateful for the diagnosis that changed everything. I'm grateful for the treatment that gave me my life back. But mostly, I'm grateful for the understanding that came with it. The knowledge that sometimes the hardest battles are the ones no one else can see.